On September 22, 2023, Pava LaPere entered her apartment building with a man police say she did not appear to know. They walked to the elevator, the doors closed, and for the next 30 to 40 minutes, the cameras lost sight of what happened. When the man appeared again, he was alone. Pava was not with him. 3 days later, police found her body on the roof, but by then, the mystery had already become something much darker. Why did she let him in? For 3 days, no one knew what happened inside that building. For 3 days, no one thought to look up, to the rooftop. Monday morning, the calls started. Co-workers trying to reach her, messages going unanswered, an inbox growing cold. Something was wrong. Pava LaPere did not disappear without a trace. She had a company, she had meetings, she had people who depended on her, and she had simply stopped responding. Police were called. The building became the focus. Doors were checked. Hallways were searched. At first, this looked like a missing person case. A tragedy, maybe. A medical emergency, perhaps. But not a murder. Nobody thought to check the roof. Not yet. Before this becomes a crime story, it has to be her story. Pava LaPere grew up in Tucson, Arizona. She came to Baltimore to study at Johns Hopkins University, and something happened to her in that city. She fell in love with it. Not just the city, the possibility inside it. She co-founded entrepreneurship programs. She built networks. She believed that technology could open doors for people who had never had access before. By the time she was 26, Pava was CEO of EchoMap Technologies, a platform that mapped resources for communities and entrepreneurs. She had been named to Forbes' 30 Under 30. In Baltimore's tech world, people called her a connector, not because she was famous, because she made people feel like they mattered. She was 26 years old, and her career was only beginning, which is why what happened on the night of September 22nd is so difficult to understand, because nothing in her world should have led to that rooftop. The timeline begins Friday evening. Pava comes home. She walks toward the entrance of her building. The camera catches her, and it catches something else. A man is there, on the other side of the glass. He is not a resident. He has no key. He gestures toward her. Pava opens the door. He walks in. They take the elevator together. That is the last time surveillance cameras see them together. The next time a camera records him, he is alone, moving fast toward the exit. Roughly 30 to 40 minutes after entering, the man leaves. He is moving quickly. Investigators would later note something specific. He was seen wiping his hands on his shorts. That detail mattered because it suggested something had already happened, something that left a mark. He walked out onto the street. The city went on around him. No alarms, no sirens, no one watching. And somewhere above, on a rooftop nobody had checked yet, Pava LaPere was not coming home. She would not be found for 3 more days. The city didn't know to look. Neither did her killer expect to be caught. On Monday, September 25th, the search found its way upward. What investigators discovered on that rooftop was not quiet. It was not peaceful. Reports described signs of a violent struggle. A brick, personal items, clothing, red shoes believed to belong to Pava, a broken hair clip. The medical examiner would later determine the cause of death: strangulation and blunt force trauma. The ruling: homicide. This was no accident. This was not a fall. This was not a misunderstanding. Someone had been up on that roof with her. Someone had entered through the front door. And investigators already had him on camera. Detectives had footage. They had a timeline. They had a crime scene. What they needed was a name. The surveillance footage was the spine of the case. It placed an unknown man with Pava at the entrance. It showed him leaving alone, 40 minutes later. And it gave investigators something to work with: a face. They circulated the footage. A witness came forward. And very quickly, the case shifted from a search for a killer to a manhunt for a man police already knew something about, because when detectives ran the name that came back, they realized this was not his first time. Not even close. The man identified in the surveillance footage was Jason Dean Billingsley. And with that name, the case took on a darker dimension. Billingsley was not a stranger to law enforcement. Reports described him as a repeat violent offender, someone with a history, a pattern. But it was the timing that shook investigators. 3 days before Pava was believed to have been killed, Billingsley had allegedly been involved in another violent incident, a separate home invasion involving April Hurley and Jonte Gilmore. September 19th, 3 days before Pava opened that door. The question was no longer just who killed her. The question was, why was he still out there? And the city of Baltimore would wrestle with that question long after the courtroom doors closed. This is where people's minds go. She was a CEO, a public figure, someone who moved through the world of funding, startups, influence, and networks. Was this connected to her work? Did someone target her specifically? Was there a relationship she kept private? A business dispute that turned dangerous? It is the version of the story the mind reaches for, because it feels like there must be a reason. There must be a connection. But public reporting did not establish any known personal relationship between Pava LaPere and Jason Billingsley. No friendship, no prior meeting, no known link, which means the answer to why she opened that door may be the simplest and most devastating one. She was being a human being. She didn't know. In most murder cases, the motive is the map: money, jealousy, revenge, a relationship gone wrong. There is comfort in motive, because motive means the violence was personal, targeted, logical within its own dark logic, something that could have been different if only one thing had changed. But authorities did not publicly establish a clear personal motive connecting Billingsley to Pava. No financial connection, no confirmed grudge, no relationship gone wrong. What that leaves behind is something harder to sit with: randomness, opportunity, predatory violence, a dangerous man, and an ordinary Friday night. But the story was not finished. One final chapter was still coming, and it would happen almost a year later, inside a courtroom. August 2024, nearly 1 year after that Friday night in Baltimore, Jason Billingsley entered a courtroom, and he pleaded guilty. First-degree murder, Pava LaPere. He also pleaded guilty in the separate case involving April Hurley and Jonte Gilmore. The sentence came at the end of that same month: 3 life terms, no possibility of release. The man who walked out of that building alone on a September Friday night would never walk free again. The legal case was closed, but closed is not the same as healed, and justice is not the same as restored. Because for everyone who knew Pava, the sentence answered who. It could never answer why, and it could never give back what was taken. The murder of Pava LaPere is a case about surveillance and evidence, about a manhunt and a courtroom, about a system and its failures. But underneath all of that, it is a story about trust, about how ordinary moments can be exploited, about how one person's violence can erase a life that was still unfolding, about how the true cost of crime is never the verdict. It is every conversation that never happened, every company she never built, every person she would have connected to someone else, every morning she should have woken up to.